Leave something for Cove to do for once. He's got to earn that fifth slice of cake. There was a yelp of indignation as, last but not least, Cove made his appearance over Terry's shoulder. The sight of the three of them lined up in height order like that was comical. Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're new here. My name is Death by Pony and today we're hopping right back in to our life. So without further ado, let's go. You felt a warm fuzzy feeling spread throughout your body as Scott began to whisper rapidly in Jude's ear, likely interrogating him about what was going on and where the cake had come from. It was too far away for you to tell what was said, but you didn't need to be in earshot to know that Scott was floored. You sagged in your seat with relief. Your long night's effort was vindicated. News of the groom's cake spread like a wave throughout the room. People murmured excitedly to one another, with some approving nods and expressions of admiration thrown in. At his husband's side, Jude was looking nowhere but at Scott's face, eyes filled with emotion. He wrapped his arm around Scott's waist and they leaned into each other, a sidelong embrace. A fresh knife had been provided for the second cake, and Scott eagerly called the photographer back over to snap some fresh shots, both of the whole cake and then them cutting it. This time, as the incision was made, Jude addressed the onlookers.
Seriously?
This is the last cake, I swear. Some laughs, and then the room devolved into chatter as people began lining up in front of the top of the table for the desserts. You and your friends, being close by, got there early. A couple were handing out slices to everyone on the little side of plates. Jude took care of their tiered cake while Scott was still fawning over the bright red controller, even as he cut into it. At the front of the line, you had the option of taking a slice from the chocolate vanilla tiered cake, the carrot cake of your own making, or to Cove's delight, a piece of both. You went for, I'll go with the tiered cake.
Me too.
That's what I'm having too. Doesn't it look so good? I know the decorations don't have anything to do with how it tastes, but I feel like it does. Then she stammered in an apologetic flushing a little. I mean, that's not to say your cake doesn't look nice too. You can tell a lot of hard work went into it, and Scott and Jude were both happy with how it turned out. It was really kind of you to do that for them. Thank you. It's just like chocolate cake. I just like chocolate cake. Wow. It's okay, Randy. I like this one too. When everyone was in their seats again, you had an unexpected visitor. Baxter had squeezed his way past the line for dessert and over to your table. His hand hovered over the back of your chair. So, look at them all together. Hi. Hey. Cove's greeting was stilted and awkward. There simply hadn't been time before him to get used to Baxter's presence, and he was never quite used to it to begin with.
Hello.
It's been a while, Cove. Good evening, everyone. Are we enjoying ourselves? Your group exchanged glasses amongst themselves, as if to decide who would go first. Oh, it's knife? Cove swallowed his mouth full of cake and tried again.
It's nice.
It's been pretty nice, yeah. Miranda threw up her hands in mock exasperation, her body language having become a lot more flamboyant ever since the wine she had with the main course. Don't worry, Baxter. I think it's the best wedding I've ever been to. Terry nodded along as she spoke, tilting his chair up on its hind legs with his arm draped over the back of it. It's been amazing you brought your A game today, B-Man. Baxter's eyes twinkled at the mention of his old moniker, and it looked like the professional here was suppressing a laugh to boot. I'm afraid that joke gets a C-, Terry. No, but seriously, man, it's been a blast. That's what two successful events you've organized for Miranda's family already? You should become official party planner for the Eckerts.
Yeah.
That could work. At least I know who to come to when Terry and I need help. Exactly. Wait a minute. Then the front legs of Terry's chair hit the floor with a thunk, As Miranda waited for her boyfriend's brain to catch up with the conversation, she reached for a glass and took another swig of wine. Terry looked like she was trying to solve an extremely difficult mental math problem. All power and language having evaporated, Miranda's mind patted his leg, looked into his eyes, and smiled sweetly. You let out a silent shout in your head, not wanting to interrupt whatever moment the two were having now. Miranda hadn't proposed at her brother's wedding, but it was a heck of a hint. Baxter put a finger thoughtfully to his lips, fighting to hide the way corners of his mouth were curling upwards. Perhaps I could consider introducing a loyalty card system. I certainly appreciate a returning customer. Miranda had now laced her fingers together with Terry's, who was still unresponsive to external stimuli. Cove giggled and leaned in to speak quietly to you. I wasn't here for a week. What happened? A lot. You didn't get a chance to elaborate. Baxter, James, I was looking for you. I know what you did. Scott had a healthy flush to his face, his eyes bright, enthusiastic. It didn't match the almost sinister choice of words Jude appeared with his husband right at the elbow. You made that cake. Yep, last night. Scott's eyebrows and voice rose in unison, his tone modulating a few octaves upwards in incredulousness.
What?
Last night? You can't be serious. What were you thinking? You and Baxter nearly fell over each other trying to assure Scott that it hadn't been too much trouble and that you'd volunteered your time in best. And besides, you were both old hands at baking by now. Out of the corner of your eye, you noticed Cove paying attention, a look of comprehension drawing on his face. The source of your earlier agitation had finally been revealed. With enough reassurance from the pair of you, Scott's concern was mollified, enough for him to round his way back to thanking you again. It was a highlight of the day, honestly.
That's wonderful.
You're too kind, Scott. It's been more than worthwhile. As long as you're satisfied, I couldn't be happier. Yeah, and you're welcome, Mr. and Mr. Adam. Thanks. It was just perfect. The cake, the ceremony. His voice was getting strained with emotion, and he broke off in favor of taking Jude's hand again. We won't forget it, right, Grant? A vigorous shake of the head from Grant. Ah, cool, well. Here, Jude reached over and clapped a hand to Baxter's shoulder.
We owe you.
For real, you made this happen. Thank you. Thank you all. There was another round of yours welcome. Don't mention it, before Baxter made his excuses promptly vanished. Jude watched him leave, arms folded.
No clue.
I don't get that dude. He's got a head for dealing with stuff. He handled me and Scott's issues. Why can't he do it for himself? You, Cove, Miranda, and Terry all swapped a series of silent, sidelong looks. For having only known Baxter a week, Jude's perception was uncannily accurate. What could he even say that in rebuttal? Jude didn't pay you any mind, nor did he react to his statement. He merely shrugged with one shoulder, fingers of his hand splaying out in a universal, whatever kind of gesture. He's trying. You have no idea. At least he's better than he used to be. Hey, problems or not, I still care about him. You sighed long and deep. He's better than he used to be. If he was 5 years younger, he probably wouldn't have left state to avoid me. Wait. If he was 5 years younger, he probably would have left state to avoid me. Sounds about right. Jude gave his wedding reception a glance with new eyes. We should go. The real dancing started, and he owes me a rematch. Scott tutted, cocking his hip. It's not gonna make any difference, Jude, but I'll humor you since it's your wedding day. It's your wedding day, too. Those two made a game, a competitive one, at that, even out of dancing. Together, no one could get in the way of that. The couple joyfully made a break for the dance floor hand in hand. After a second or so, Miranda wiped a few chocolate cake crumbs from around her mouth and got to her feet, holding her hand out to Terry.
So...
You know, we could dance too. Terry placed his palm on Miranda's and they sprang to his feet. Yes, let's show those clowns what 10 years of birthday parties looks like. How about you, Cove? The pair of them turned their puppy dog eyes over to Cove, who was somehow still chewing. He shook his head and swallowed.
Don't worry about it.
I'm good. I'll stay here and watch if that's okay. Sure, James? Count me in. You nodded, getting up to dance with them seemed like fun. I think I'll pass too. Have fun though. You shook your head. That'd be too much. Count me in. You waved goodbye to Cove and ran off to the center space. A large number of Scott and Jude's friends and relations were already there, shaking it enthusiastically. You felt the sugar in your blood like a buzz, and the music became a pulse that merged with the beat of your heart. It was much more entertaining and energetic than the groom's initial 2 steps had been. The ballroom had been swiftly left behind for what was essentially a miniature disco. Scott and Jude bounced their way over to the 3 of you. They laughed incredulously as Terry and Randy busted not merely one, but several moves, other dancers stopping to whistle and cheer them on. The Fox competition was soon forgotten about. While Terry and Miranda started doing slightly tipsy laps of the floor together, you stayed behind and hopped around with Scott and Jude. You couldn't help but spare a thought to whoever was organizing the music as the final triumphant chorus of pop-punk ballad blended into the opening bars of hip-hop track. Whoever it was had obviously known their audience. You hadn't heard some of this music in years. Midway through, Randy and her brother-in-law doing an impromptu rendition of the Macarena, he glanced over where Cove was sitting. He gave a cheerful little wave, perfectly content to stay where he was. In his glass palace on top of the world, the people celebrating the evening away, a few early stars, like curious children, began to poke their head out. The time moved for you in strange increments, moments and colors running together like globs of paint. You counted the minutes by the measure of jazz chords in camera flashes and laughter. You remember looking around for him in times trying to catch glimpses through shifting masses of bodies, eyes peeled for the telltale mop of grayish black. But try as you did, Baxter Ward was visibly only in short snatches, the back of his head over someone's shoulder, half-face turned to speak to a colleague, a pair of eyes reflecting in a window. His presence was like a wisp of insubstantial smoke. He had become a shadow. Easily forgotten, yet always there. Hours passed until you were standing in the lobby with the others to send the couple off. It was funny, you thought for the day of effort you'd put in, it was all over so quickly. Scott and Jude were doing their rounds one last time, expressing their heartfelt appreciation to people for coming, that they hadn't stopped holding hands since the dancing began. A few moments later, and you were waving from the front steps, and they got in the sparkling car and drove off. The splash of red sped away in an instant, carrying them to a new life together. The majority of the guests had made themselves scarce shortly afterwards, heading down to the parking garage en masse or getting into taxis. You stayed behind together with Scott and Jude's relations. The party portion of the party might have finished, but someone had to clean up afterwards. You leaned against the wall of the elevator on the way back up to the hall, half tired, half relieved. One good thing about the evening being over was that you didn't have to worry about it anymore. The doors opened once again and you stepped out into the wedding hall. Cove, Miranda, and Terry were at the dining tables, busily stripping them down.
Hey!
Over here! You were beckoned to join them as soon as you were scooping up garbage and folding up tablecloths in earnest. It was almost a cliche at this point, but you once again found yourself recalling a similar occasion years before. It was just like when you stayed behind to clean up after Miranda's birthday party. It felt the same way then, the strange mix of emptiness and satisfaction. Casting your eyes about the room, you realized that it wasn't the only common thread. Like before, there was one member of your ragtag group, who wasn't present. Baxter was down on the opposite end of the room, still rushing to and fro between various groups of staff, keeping himself occupied. You decided to not get in his way, not while he was busy. The moment would come eventually. You'd been hoping to spend some time together. The wedding might be over, but you still wanted to dance. You needed to talk now that the big event was done. Someone needed to thank him for his part in all this. It made you sad thinking he was being left out. Dance. You resigned yourself to waiting. The trouble was it took a lot longer than you anticipated. Once all the trash had been cleared away and started vacuuming the floors, how did he find that? And when you finished with the decorations, he was in the middle of moving stacks of chairs over to the elevators. He passed close by as you were beginning to pack the wedding cakes. You called out to him, but all he got was your perfunctory smile and a tilt of the head before he sped away again. Your heart sank as you turned back to what was left of the groom's cake, which you were slicing to pack into a storage container. You wouldn't ignore Baxter, but the same clearly wasn't true for him. He hadn't spoken to you since that one time during the reception. It couldn't be a coincidence. For some reason or another, he'd been avoiding you, all of you, or maybe you specifically. It was getting kind of ridiculous. There was almost nobody left in the room. By now it was you, Cove, Miranda, and Terry, some employees from the building itself, and Baxter. Everyone else had gone. Time was running out. He left before you had the chance to speak. There was no knowing whether you'd get another. You might never see him again. You looked down at the cake in your hand that you made, the last evidence of your collaboration. Maybe even your friendship. You were cutting it into pieces and putting it away in a box. How symbolic. You carried on slicing, ruminating on this thought in silence. It was hard to say how you felt about it. Surely you'd accept this sort of behavior in the past, but now? Take a break? The sound of Miranda's voice pulled you out of the mental quagmire you'd been so focused on. Baxter's usual strangeness that you hadn't registered her talking. One look at the surprise on your face was enough for Randy to know you'd been a million miles away. She tapped the table in front of you. I can finish up here, James. You've been going for ages, and you were up all night too. Her wide eyes were worried when you looked up into them. There was a slight pinch in her forehead. Yeah, you should take it easy. Terry's head popped into view from behind Miranda, his expression of concern an exact replica of hers. It was so cute the way that they gradually taken on each other's mannerisms over the years. Leave something for Cove to do for once. He's got to earn that fifth slice of cake. There was a yelp of indignation as, last but not least, Cove made his appearance over Terry's shoulder. The sight of the three of them lined up in height order like that was comical. Cove's face was a little pouty, his tone defensive. It wasn't like I didn't want to help out, Terry, and besides, it wouldn't be my fifth. It'd be, let's see. He trailed off, gazing, drifting up and to one side as he silently counted on his fingers. As a unit, Terry and Miranda rolled their eyes, seeming to realize his mistake. Cove dropped his hand. Anyway, they're right about the break, James. You can leave the rest to me, okay? Oh? At this, Miranda pulled up a chair next to yours and sat down.
Wow.
Leave it all to you, Cove? That's so nice. Huh? Wow, thanks for offering, buddy. It's been such a long day after all. Terry stretched wide and made a ridiculously exaggerated yawn sound before flopping down into Miranda's lap, putting an arm around her shoulder. They both grinned at Cove with all of their teeth.
Hey!
I didn't mean that. Stifling laugh, you got up to leave. Your friends were probably right. You needed to give the wedding work a rest. You had other things on your mind anyway. You patted Cove sympathetically on the shoulder as you headed to the far end of the wedding hall in the direction of a certain someone. The past half an hour or so, Baxter had visibly struggled to stay preoccupied, whilst nobody remained for him to give instructions to. There were no more chairs to stack or tables to clear. By now, he'd resorted to standing with his back turned and his arms folded, gazing out over the city, the enormous windows, and trying his best to look deep in thought. You weren't fooled, though. It was about time you put him out of his misery. You approached him behind and softly called his name. Baxter? He stiffened at the sound, shoulders tensing for a few seconds. He was frozen. Then, all at once, Baxter spun around to face you, that perennial smile fixed firmly in place. And that's where we'll end that. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, hit like. That way I know you're enjoying the content I'm making. Hit subscribe. That way YouTube brings you back Here's Happens Next. I won't take up any more of your time. Have a good day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.